Memories of the deepest wound of my heart flooded back to me now. One conversation in particular stood out. I remember it was a cloudy day in late January. I was 21 years old, and a little more than a year prior, I had been signed to a major record label. It seemed that all my dreams were coming true. I wanted to change the world through music. I wanted the world to experience a beauty it had never experienced before. I wanted to use music to bring the world to the beautiful Savior, Jesus Christ. Like the ripples of a rock thrown in a pond, I believed the wake of God's grace would be felt all over the world through the music He was giving me. I was recording with one of the best producers in the business, and there were plans to go on tour to promote my new single that was supposed to hit select radio stations in a matter of weeks. I was on top of the world. But recently, we were running behind on schedule. I'd been trying to contact the owner of the record label over the past week, but he had been difficult to get a hold of. This was very odd because he had made it clear that I was one of his top priorities. I was supposed to meet the producer in the studio about a week ago, but he had canceled for reasons he would not tell me. The clouds of that day almost lifted when I heard the phone ring, hoping it was the label calling to say there was a minor problem that had been adjusted and they needed me back in the studio tomorrow. I yanked the phone to my ear. Hello? Yes, is Garrett there? A very pointed business voice of a man spoke. Hope mixed with dread washed over me. There was no mistaking the voice of the assistant of the owner of the record label. Contact, yes. But he had never called me before. Mr. Connell, the owner, had always spoken to me personally. Why didn't he call me himself? Hey Jim, I was hoping to hear from you all soon. I haven't been able to get a hold of Mr. Connell. My studio session was canceled and I've been instructed to inform you that you have been released from the contractual obligations to the record label. You will need to vacate the apartment we have provided within a week. Mr. Connell will pursue legal action if you call him again. The appropriate paperwork will be mailed to you. Sign it and send it back within the month. Panic sent a wave of tension over my body. I was paralyzed, and at the same time I couldn't believe that someone could give such terrible news so inhumanely, so mechanically. I wondered if he was required to give up his soul to do his job. I wondered if he was one of those cold individuals that sold himself the lie of, it's just a job, someone has to do it. But my thoughts were pointless. It had been 5 long seconds of silence teamed with a whole lot of awkwardness, and he attempted to get off the phone with, "Thank you for your time." I responded out of desperation, "Wait." There was silence on the other end, but I did not hear the click of the receiver that would mean he had hung up, so I proceeded with all I could come up with in my panicked idiocracy. "Why? Can you tell me why?" A short pause followed, and I wondered if Jim had hung up. "I have told you all I've been instructed to say. Thank you for your time. Goodbye." Click. Wait, what happened? What can I do? I knew he had already hung up, but I couldn't help expressing more of the panic and confusion that warped my mind into exhausting what could have brought this all about. That was the last I heard from the record label. My nearly professional music career had come to an end. I never found out why they let me go, and I never got another shot at doing music professionally. Anger was my companion through this ordeal. I let anger console me, or rather, provoke me to uncontrollable amounts. I was angry with the owner of the label, for obvious reasons, but I was also angry with God. Strangely enough, as time went on, my anger toward God became greater and all other anger ceased. Even as a young man, I knew God controlled the outcome of all things. Chapter 3 of Lamentations is clear about this topic. especially verses 37 and 38. But why would He cause me to get so close to my dreams coming true and then snatch them away as if my life were a cruel game He wanted to play with? What was even harder for me to understand was that I was dreaming this dream for His glory. I wanted the world to know Christ. I wanted Him to get the glory He deserves. Psalm 37:4 says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." I wanted to glorify Him, and my heart's desire was to do that through music. Those are pure motives, right? And no matter how many times I asked God why He would allow such a thing to happen, I never heard His response. 40 years later, I had thought my anger toward the King of Kings had diminished, but now I knew it was only repressed, hidden away in that deep, dark part of my heart that I hated about myself. All at the same time, I understood why anger had been able to hang on so long. I was never able to find out an answer to the question, and until the door was closed, I would be unable to move past it. Shame stabbed my heart as I looked up into the face of my King. I knew He could see my thoughts. I hated that I felt anger toward Him who died on the cross for me. Even as I looked into the most miraculous brown eyes I've ever seen, I saw what could only be described as infinite wisdom and compassion. It was beyond any doubt that His love for me was greater than I could imagine. His eyes seemed to reveal more than I could ever dream to know. My belief in the greatness of His holiness was multiplied. The reality of His desires and purposes being infinitely more important than my own was overwhelming. And here I was, consumed with anger over something so small as feeling cheated out of something that was never mine to take. Every second in His presence, I was becoming increasingly aware that my soul was made to worship Him. With every fiber of my being, I was in awe of Him, adoring Him without words, but with heart and thought. This made my wants seem so dismal in the big picture. Even so, anger stabbed its way into my heart again, and filled with the resolve that anger brings, I bowed a little lower, took a deep breath to gather all my courage, and attempted to still my emotion. My King, forgive me for my anger. I thank You for all that You have given me in this life. You have given me more than I could ever thank You for. The best of all is the intimate relationship You've given me with You. But because I see that I must understand this matter to move on in my heart, I will ask, why did You bring me so close to my dream coming true and then take it away in such a cruel fashion? I wanted to do it all for You. Millions of lives that could have been touched. And Psalm 37. I talked myself into a red-faced frenzy of hurt boiled over as my emotions could not be contained. I began to cry again, but this time I was trying to stop it and almost felt like I had control. Then I heard something that startled me. A couple of sniffs and what sounded like a gut-wrenching heave. If anything, I expected the anger of Him who I had unjustly accused of mistreating me. After all, that is what I deserved. As I glanced up, He was sobbing. Before I could bring myself to believe what I was witnessing, He drew me into His arms. He embraced me freely and wept as He held me. I could not help but to hold on tight and weep with Him. My weeping was more due to the fact that I had yearned for years and years to fall into the arms of the one who had saved my soul. Before this dream, I had pictured that a bear hug would be one of the first things on the to-do list when I saw Him. In my mind's eye, I had built this scene up to be so miraculously wonderful. But the real thing was unspeakably better than anything I had pictured. All anger was gone in that instant, and all I could feel was an immense love and gratitude toward the one I held, the King of Glory, the one whose love overcame my sin. My tears were tears of rejoicing. But why was he crying? Before I could gather myself enough to ask the question, he pushed himself from our embrace. Holding me at arm's length, he gripped my shoulders with both hands. His watery eyes were so gentle and sincere. I love you, Garrett. I always have. I weep for the many years of your pain as I have time and again, praying for you before my Father. Your pain is my pain too, you know. As I am the vine and you are the branch, we are connected, your soul and mine. And now it is time for you to understand what has plagued you for so long. To hear my Lord speak these words was unlike anything my heart has ever experienced. It was something like waiting all my life and then hearing my Father tell me he loved me for the first time. But the euphoria I felt was much more than any joy a mere mortal could bring me. I mean, I knew he loved me, but to hear him actually say it, wow! And then hearing this new reality about how connected our souls were, well, let's just say that it was a little much for me to take in at once. And I was excited to think that I would finally get past my foolish anger towards the Prince of Peace. Will you walk with me, Garrett? You know I will, my Lord.